them into a trap, and I want you to speak to this. I think it's brought them into a trap now, because all these other mainline physicists, architects, engineers are going, wait a minute, and now they're looking at the NIST report, and it's becoming like a Copernicus or a Galileo court debate, and other scientists are now looking, going, wait a minute, new phenomenon, new, 1,500-degree fires do what only 2,800 would do, and wait, the aerial photos from NASA do show 3,000 degrees, 2,600 degrees. They're like, wait a minute. So in a way, they're claiming physics has changed, is widening the debate and backfiring on them. I want you to comment on that. We're coming back live to the full audience. Here we go. Mark Steponski, we're bringing up the NIST report and how they've had to change how physics works. And so a lot of scientists and physicists and architects that weren't involved and didn't believe it was an inside job are now looking, going, you're saying jet fuel made 2,600-degree pockets of stuff 5 weeks later, thousands of degrees hotter? NIST coming out and saying now small fires bring down steel buildings is changing everything. Mark, continue.
Yeah, this coincides with the Bush administration's technique from day one. They have actively sought to discredit science and to really argue with scientific belief. It doesn't matter whether it's the EPA, the FDA, whatever it is. There's been active warfare on the part of the Bush administration against science. And this is another clear-cut example of that.
Well, it's like marijuana. They know marijuana doesn't kill one person a year. It's a miracle drug with thousands of patented, real things it does for cancer, glaucoma. But they're still SWAT teaming people every day where I live looking for marijuana.
Absolutely. No matter how much evidence you present, no matter how authoritative that evidence is, no matter who it comes from, as far as, credible scientific or medical establishments, it will just be written off by propaganda. It really is an info war. You can present any kind of factual evidence you want to support your theory, but again, corporate media, the Republican or Democratic Party, they'll just write it off with propaganda.
But that is starting... I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, but that is what we are seeing right now, which is another, by this NIST report trying to come out and explain why something that's never happened before did happen, namely 3 steel buildings collapsing because of fire in one day. They do have to stretch the realms of reality. They do have to contradict science and offer an alternative view, which is completely bogus, which is why I'm glad to see that people with... people who are experts, people, whose backgrounds are in this field are coming forward and saying, look, you guys are just straining any credibility you have here to the breaking point. We can't accept this. The only thing is, these are things that's coming out in scientific journals and academic papers that are peer-reviewed. These are not things that appear on the evening news or are going to be on a front-page headline.
That's a great point. First they said... like 3 or 4 years ago, let's see some studies. And then they did studies. Let's see them be peer-reviewed. Then a couple of them get peer-reviewed by major peer-reviewed, not just side journals, big marquee, Super Bowl-level journals. We're talking the big ones, the most prestigious. And then they try to write that off. We keep clearing every hurdle, Mark, and the other side is just looking stupider and stupider.
And I believe that NIST itself is part of the executive branch, correct?
Yes.
So there we see another example. Just like the Office of National Drug Control Policy is part of the executive branch, and they are the ones who constantly spew forth misinformation about the drug war. We have NIST, which is also an executive branch administration, leading the charge about the lies regarding 9/11.
Well, like you said, though, more and more people are tuning out of mainstream media. It's exponential, and instead of them reporting some of the truth or trying to act more credible, it seems like they're getting more shrill, more cartoonish, more ridiculous, piling lie on top of lie. I don't know what the tactic is there, but it doesn't seem to be working, Mark.
Well, it reminds me of the old quote about, and I can't remember who said it, but it's just the old quote about truth coming out. First first, when you are a truth teller, you know, in this age of universal deceit that we live in, where those of us are trying to commit a revolutionary act by telling the truth, you know, it becomes evident that, you know, we will be attacked. That's the first method. Actually, the first method is to be written off and ridiculed, and that was the case early on after September 11th.
Yes.
We were all pigeonholed as conspiracy theorists, and we were out of our minds. So that was the ridicule. Then you had the vicious attacks. You know, now that it's becoming obvious that, you know, the 9/11 truth movement is based on truth and facts and evidence, we are being maliciously attacked.
Yes, and that's...
And then, you know, I just want to follow up by, again, with that famous quotation, the third stage of the truth being accepted is that people will accept it. So I think now we are in the second stage. You know, those first few years we were attacked and vilified. We were ridiculed. Now we are being attacked and vilified. Hopefully we are coming close to that third stage where there will be mass acceptance of this truth, and people won't be afraid to put aside their cognitive dissonance and step out and accept this new paradigm of reality that we all have to see around us.
Oh, beautifully put. And that's really it. I don't blame a lot of people who don't want to look at the facts, because every night when I go to bed, I look at how innocent my children are, I look how good my wife is, and I just think, God, there are really evil people in this world, and they really are in control, and I've really gotten their face, and man, I've been threatened, and this is dangerous. Then I realize, you know, I just can't let the world go on like this. I've got to do my job, whether it has an effect or not. But the truth is, when good people do get involved, I believe, as Thomas Jefferson said, you know, that we can overturn evil. It's evil only wins when good men and women do nothing. And you're right. First they ignore you, then they attack you, then you win. And that's basically what's happening now. Or then there's another quote I'm butchering, but paraphrasing. But, you know, truth goes through three stages. First, it's laughed at, then it's ridiculed, then it's accepted as, you know, universally true. And people who said the world was round were laughed at, and now we know it's round, Mark.
Well, yeah, and just, you know, for me personally, you know, again, I think we should all just do what we can. You know, different people have different amounts of time, different resources, be they financial or whatever. But I just felt personally, as an American citizen, it was my duty to speak out. You know, I was asked to do a newspaper article for my hometown. And it was just one of those deals, where are they now? What are they doing now that they're retired? And I just, again, I felt compelled to at least let people in Erie, Pennsylvania, my hometown, who read the paper, know that somebody who came from there doesn't believe in the official story of 9/11, and, you know, wholeheartedly believes that they too should seek out the truth for themselves.
What type of response? I mean, I know overwhelmingly it was positive, but what type of negative responses did you get? And then what was it like with your moral courage to go through that and not recant?
Well, you know, the reaction overwhelmingly was positive. I mean, I don't spend a lot of time in my hometown anymore, and, you know, I know that there were people who wrote in letters saying, you know, what's wrong with this guy? He's way out in left field. But like we discussed earlier, now that we are, you know, coming up on 8 years after the fact, people are coming, 7 years after the fact, people are becoming aware of what actually happened that day. You know, the initial shock value of that psychological operation is wearing off. People are getting a chance to see what really went on behind the scenes. So I didn't really suffer much fallout at all. You know, it was just, again, regardless of how many people might write in, and there's always going to be a few, you know, who will just personally attack you. I experienced the same thing when I spoke out against marijuana laws. You know, you have people saying that you're not a good role model, you know, that you're a proponent of drug use and everything else.
Yeah, but you go to a football game and there's liquor ads everywhere, which
Sure.
no doubt is bad for you. But then, you know, these guys with a whiskey bottle, how dare you be for that marijuana? I mean,
it's just, you know, again, it's people have blinders on with certain respect to the war on drugs, just like they do with 9/11. So I just wanted to, you know, like, again, you know, for people in my hometown who might know who I am or what I stand for, or, you know, at least they might know enough about me to know that I'm not just some guy spouting off, that I might be a guy who actually does have educated opinions And it might be worth their while to follow up on what I said, because they might learn something.
Absolutely. Let's take some calls for Mark Steponski. Mark, before we do that in the last 15 or 16 minutes, any other points you wanted to add, anything else you wanted to point out?
Well, I would just like to tell people that they should make a personal commitment in their life to continue to educate themselves on these issues. You know, the easiest thing in the world is just to pigeonhole something and write it off, put a label on it, and say, I don't have to look into it any further. You know, they'll just categorize it as something they don't want to know, and then just move on. That's the easiest thing to do, and I say intellectually that's the lazy thing to do. I think people should take it upon themselves to have the initiative. If you're going to disprove something, if you're going to write it off, at least look into it and have an educated opinion about it. So I know there's a lot of nonsense out there regarding